I remember the exact moment my marriage ended. Not the day I signed the papers, not the day I moved out, but the night I stood in our kitchen holding a glass of wine I couldn't drink, listening to my husband tell his sister she was brilliant while he looked at me like I was something he'd scraped off his shoe. It was a Tuesday in October, one of those evenings where the air smells like dying leaves and wood smoke, and I'd just come home from another 14-hour shift at the hospital where I worked as a surgical nurse. My feet ached. My scrubs smelled like antiseptic and exhaustion. I'd missed lunch again. But I came through that door smiling because I had news. Real news, the kind that changes everything. For 3 years, I'd been developing a business plan. 3 years of late nights after double shifts, of spreadsheets and market research and cold emails to potential investors. I'd created a concept for a medical staffing agency that would revolutionize how hospitals filled emergency nursing shortages. I had the expertise, the connections, the vision. All I needed was capital to launch. $25,000. That's what I needed to start. Not a fortune. Not even close to what some people spend on a wedding or a car. Just enough to cover LLC fees, initial marketing, website development, and 6 months of operating costs while I built the client base. I'd been saving every extra dollar I could, but between our mortgage, his car payment on that ridiculous BMW he insisted on leasing, and the constant financial support he gave his family, my savings account had maybe $8,000 in it. I needed a partner. I needed my husband. His name was Marcus. Marcus Chen. We'd met 7 years earlier at a friend's rooftop barbecue in Brooklyn, back when I was just finishing nursing school and he was 2 years into his job as a financial analyst at a mid-size investment firm. He had this way of looking at you when you talked, like you were the only person in the world, like every word you said mattered. He was handsome in an understated way, dark hair always perfectly styled, wire-rimmed glasses that made him look distinguished, a smile that came slow but felt earned. We got married 3 years after we met, in a small ceremony in upstate New York with 40 guests and wildflowers everywhere. I wore my mother's veil. He cried when I walked down the aisle. I thought I'd found my person. I thought we were building something together. But somewhere between I do and that October night, something had shifted. Or maybe it had always been there, and I'd just been too in love to see it. When I walked into our apartment that evening, Marcus was on the phone, pacing in the living room with that intense expression he got when he was talking business. I didn't think much of it at first. I kicked off my shoes, poured myself that glass of wine, and started pulling ingredients out of the fridge for dinner. Then I heard him say, "Jenna, you're brilliant. This is exactly the kind of innovative thinking that's going to set you apart." Jenna, his sister, 4 years younger than Marcus, with the same dark hair and sharp features but none of his quiet reserve. Jenna was loud, confident, relentlessly ambitious. She'd been working in tech sales for a few years, bouncing between startups, always talking about her next big idea. I heard Marcus laugh, that warm, encouraging laugh I used to hear when he talked about my nursing career, back when he still asked about my day, back when he still seemed proud of what I did. No, I get it, he was saying. The market's absolutely ready for this. The whole influencer meets wellness space is exploding. Listen, I've been looking at our finances, and I think we can make this work. I want to invest in you. Something in my chest tightened. I walked to the doorway of the living room, still holding that wine glass, and I watched my husband pace and gesture animatedly, completely unaware I was there. "I'm thinking we could start with 100,000, he said. The glass nearly slipped from my hand. "That'll cover your initial inventory, the website, your first influencer partnerships, and give you a solid runway for at least a year. You're going to kill it, Jen. I believe in you." He finally turned and saw me standing there. His expression didn't change. He didn't look guilty or caught or even particularly concerned. He just raised one finger in a 1-minute gesture and continued his conversation. "Yeah, I'll transfer the first 50 this week and we'll do the rest next month. You got this. Love you. Bye." He hung up and slipped his phone into his pocket, smiling at me like this was completely normal. Like he hadn't just promised his sister 4 times the amount I needed. 4 times what could change my entire life. "Hey, babe," he said. Good day. I stood there in my stained scrubs, smelling like hospital and exhaustion, holding my stupid glass of wine, and I felt something inside me crack. Not break, not yet. Just crack. A hairline fracture that would eventually bring the whole structure down. Did you just promise Jenna $100,000? I asked. My voice was calm. Too calm. Yeah. He walked to the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a beer. She's starting a wellness brand. Organic supplements, skincare, that whole thing. The market's really hot right now. I think she's got a real shot. $100,000. Well, technically 90 in cash and I'm co-signing for a $10,000 business line of credit, but yeah, ballpark. He twisted the cap off his beer, took a long drink. She's been working on this for months. Really did her homework. Every word out of his mouth felt like a knife. Marcus, I've been working on my business plan for 3 years. He finally looked at me, really looked at me, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. Something that made me feel small. Dismissed. Worthless. That's different, he said. How? Jenna's got real potential. This wellness space is exploding. Every influencer wants in on it. The profit margins on supplements are insane. She could 10x our investment in 2 years. And my medical staffing agency. He sighed. Actually sighed. Like I was exhausting him. Sarah, you're a nurse. A really good nurse. But you're not an entrepreneur. You don't have business experience. You don't understand market dynamics or scaling or any of the actual mechanics of running a company. The crack in my chest widened. I've been researching this for 3 years. I have a complete business plan. I have potential clients already interested. I have. You have a nursing degree, he interrupted. Which is great. It's stable. It's respectable. But it's not the same thing as having business acumen. And Jenna does. Jenna, who's had 4 different jobs in 6 years. Jenna, who's never managed anything bigger than her own sales quota. His jaw tightened. Don't talk about my sister that way. I'm not attacking her, Marcus. I'm asking why you believe in her business idea more than mine. Because hers will actually work. The silence that followed those words was deafening. In that moment, standing in our kitchen with dinner ingredients still on the counter and my wine glass trembling in my hand, I felt the last piece of respect I had for my husband evaporate. I need $25,000 to start, I said quietly. Just 25. A quarter of what you're giving Jenna. I could do this, Marcus. I know I could. He set his beer down and looked at me with something that might have been pity. Sarah, I love you. But I'm not going to throw away money on something that's going to fail. You're a failure at business. You always have been. You're amazing at taking care of people, at following protocols, at doing what you're told. But running a company, that requires vision, risk tolerance, strategic thinking. That's just not you. You're a failure. Those 3 words echoed in my head like a death knell. I set my wine glass down on the counter very carefully, because if I didn't, I was going to throw it. I see. Don't be like that. I'm being realistic. Someone has to be. You're right, I said. My voice sounded hollow even to my own ears. Someone does. I walked out of the kitchen, down the hall to our bedroom, and closed the door. I sat on the edge of our bed in my scrubs with my head in my hands, and I realized with perfect clarity that I was married to a man who thought I was worthless. Who saw his sister as an investment opportunity and saw me as a dependable nurse who should be grateful for stability. If you've ever been betrayed by the person who was supposed to believe in you most, you know exactly how I felt in that moment. Like the ground had disappeared beneath me. Like everything I thought was solid was actually made of paper. I didn't cry. Not then. I was too shocked, too hollow. Instead, I opened my laptop and looked at my business plan for the 1000th time. Pages and pages of research, financial projections, marketing strategies. 3 years of hope compressed into 57 pages of single-spaced text. And I made a decision. If Marcus thought I was a failure, I'd prove him wrong. But I wouldn't do it with him. I wouldn't do it in this marriage. I wouldn't spend one more day with a man who looked at me like I was less than. Before you move forward with me on this journey, I need to ask you something. Drop a comment below and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know I'm not alone in this. And if you've ever felt dismissed or underestimated by someone who was supposed to love you, hit that subscribe button because you're going to want to see where this goes. Trust me. Check the description box below for more stories like this. Stories about people who refuse to stay small just because someone told them they should. That night, I didn't sleep. I lay next to Marcus in our bed, listening to him breathe, and I planned my exit. 3 days later, I filed for separation. Marcus didn't take the separation seriously at first. I think he genuinely believed I was being dramatic, that I'd cool off after a few days and realize I was overreacting. He kept calling it a rough patch and suggesting couples counseling, as if therapy could fix the fundamental fact that he didn't respect me. I moved out on a Saturday in early November. My best friend Rachel showed up with her boyfriend's pickup truck and 3 hours of stubborn loyalty. She'd been my roommate in nursing school, the kind of friend who'd hold your hair back when you puked and quiz you on pharmacology at 2 in the morning. When I called her crying after that conversation with Marcus, she'd driven across town at 11 p.m. with a bottle of tequila and a fury that matched my own. I never liked him, she said as we carried boxes down the stairs from our third-floor apartment. It was a lie. She'd been a bridesmaid at our wedding, but I loved her for saying it. You absolutely liked him. I tolerated him for your sake. There's a difference. She hefted a box labeled kitchen into the truck bed. He always had this way of correcting you. You notice that? Like anytime you tell a story at dinner, he'd jump in with well, actually, and some annoying clarification nobody asked for. I had noticed. I just convinced myself it meant he was detail-oriented, not condescending. Marcus stayed in the bedroom the entire time I packed. He didn't offer to help. Didn't ask if I needed anything. Just stayed in there with the door closed, and I could hear him on the phone, voice low and angry, probably talking to Jenna or his parents, positioning himself as the victim in whatever story he was telling. The apartment I found was a studio in Astoria, 40 minutes from the hospital where I worked but half the rent of what we'd been paying in Manhattan. It had exposed brick, decent water pressure, and a neighbor whose cooking always smelled like garlic and tomatoes, the kind of place that felt like starting over. Rachel helped me unpack, ordered Thai food, and stayed until midnight making sure I was okay. When she finally left, I sat on my new bed in my new apartment and felt the weight of what I'd done settle over me. I was 32 years old. Separated. Living alone for the first time since college. No partner, no safety net, no one to split bills with. And I'd never felt more free. But freedom doesn't pay rent. Freedom doesn't build a business. Freedom doesn't prove your worth to a man who called you a failure. I still had my job at St. Michael's Hospital, still pulling those brutal 12-hour shifts in the surgical unit, still coming home with my feet throbbing and my back aching. But now, instead of going home to a husband who barely looked up from his laptop when I walked in, I came home to silence and possibility. Every night after work, I'd heat up whatever leftovers I had, open my laptop, and work on my business plan. I refined my market analysis. I reached out to former colleagues who might be interested in joining me. I researched small business loans and angel investors and every possible funding avenue that didn't involve asking Marcus for a single dollar. Because that's what I realized in those first few weeks after leaving. I didn't just want to prove Marcus wrong about my capabilities. I wanted to build something so undeniably successful that he'd have to confront his own blindness. I wanted him to see my name on buildings. I wanted Jenna's wellness brand to crash and burn while my company thrived. Was it petty? Absolutely. Was it motivating? You have no idea. I called my business MedStaff Solutions. The concept was elegant in its simplicity. Hospitals constantly faced staffing shortages, especially in surgical and emergency units. Nurses wanted flexible schedules and better pay. My company would bridge that gap, a tech-enabled staffing platform that could fill critical nursing shortages within hours, not weeks. We'd pre-vet all candidates, provide continuing education credits, handle all the administrative paperwork, and charge hospitals a premium for the convenience. The margins were good. The need was desperate. I had the industry connections to make it work. But I still needed capital. $25,000 to start, ideally $50,000 to do it right. I spent November and December applying for every small business loan I could find. I pitched to 3 different local banks. I applied for SBA loans. I even looked into crowdfunding, though the idea of publicly begging for money made me nauseous. Every application came back the same way: denied. Insufficient collateral. Limited business experience. High debt-to-income ratio. That last one was particularly galling because my high debt-to-income ratio included the mortgage on the apartment I no longer lived in, the apartment Marcus was still living in, the apartment we'd bought together, the apartment I was still legally responsible for because our separation agreement wasn't finalized. Every rejection felt like Marcus's voice in my head. *, you're a failure. You don't have business acumen. This is going to fail. *. Christmas that year was miserable. I worked a double shift on Christmas Eve because it paid time and a half and I needed every dollar. Rachel invited me to her family's celebration in New Jersey, but I couldn't handle the pity I'd see in everyone's eyes. The separated one, how sad looks that would follow me around the dinner table. Instead, I spent Christmas morning alone in my studio apartment, eating leftover Chinese food and reviewing my business plan for the 100th time, looking for something I'd missed, some angle that would convince an investor to take a chance on me. My phone rang at 11 a.m. Marcus. I stared at his name on my screen, debating whether to answer. We hadn't spoken in 6 weeks except through lawyers. But it was Christmas, and some stupid, hopeful part of me wondered if maybe he was calling to apologize, to say he'd been wrong, to ask me to come home. I answered. "Merry Christmas," he said. His voice was careful, neutral. "Merry Christmas. How are you doing?" "I'm fine. You?" "Good. Yeah, good. Listen, I'm calling because we need to talk about the divorce paperwork. My lawyer says we can't move forward until we agree on the asset split." Of course. Not an apology. Not a moment of vulnerability. Just logistics. "I don't want the apartment," I said. "Keep it. I just want my name off the mortgage." "It's not that simple. We need to refinance, which means I need to qualify on my income alone, and with the investment in Jenna's business, my debt-to-income is temporarily elevated." Investment. He called giving his sister $100,000 an investment. "How's that going, by the way?" I asked. "Jenna's business?" "Really well, actually. She's already got her product line finalized. Website's almost done. She's in talks with some influencers who have massive followings. It's exciting." Every word was a needle in my skin. "That's great, Marcus. I'm happy for her." "Look, about what I said before you left." My heart jumped. Maybe this was it. Maybe he was finally going to apologize. "I want you to know I didn't mean it as harshly as it came out. You're not a failure as a person. You're not built for entrepreneurship. And that's okay. Not everyone is. You're an excellent nurse. You should focus on what you're good at." The last tiny piece of hope I'd been carrying shattered. "Got it," I said. My voice was ice. "I'll have my lawyer handle the asset split. Anything else?" "Sarah, don't be like this. I'm trying to be nice." "You're trying to be patronizing. There's a difference. Merry Christmas, Marcus." I hung up before he could respond. Then I did something I probably shouldn't have done. I opened Instagram and looked up Jenna's business account. Nourish by Jenna. The profile picture was a professional shot of her holding a jar of supplements, glowing skin, perfect hair, radiating confidence. The bio read, "Holistic Wellness for the Modern Woman. Launching February 2024. She had 8,000 followers already. Her feed was full of polished photos, product mock-ups, inspirational quotes about choosing your health, behind-the-scenes content from her brand development. Every post had hundreds of likes. It looked professional, expensive, successful, and it made me want to scream. But instead of screaming, I closed Instagram, opened my laptop, and started writing emails. I reached out to every nurse I'd ever worked with, every former supervisor, every hospital administrator I'd met in my 8 years in the field. I told them about MedStaff Solutions. I asked if they'd be interested in beta testing the platform. I asked for advice, for connections, for anything that might help. By midnight on Christmas, I'd sent 4 to 7 emails. By New Year's, I had 12 responses. 8 were polite brush-offs. 3 were generic well wishes. One was from a former colleague named Vanessa Rodriguez, a charge nurse at Brooklyn General who'd worked with me for 3 years in surgical. Her email said, *Sarah, this is brilliant. We're desperate for reliable staffing. When can we talk? I cried when I read it. Not sad crying. The kind of crying you do when you realize you're not alone, when someone sees what you see, when possibility becomes real. Vanessa and I met for coffee on January 3rd. She brought her hospital's nurse manager, a stern woman named Patricia who looked like she'd seen everything and trusted nothing. I pitched them on MedStaff Solutions with my laptop balanced on a coffee shop table, showing them mock-ups of the platform I'd designed, walking them through the financial model, explaining how we could solve their staffing nightmares. Patricia listened without expression. When I finished, she was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "If you can deliver what you're promising, we'll sign a contract. 6-month trial. We pay per placement, standard agency rates. But I need to see a functional platform within 60 days. 60 days. I had no platform. I had no developers. I had no money to pay developers. But I looked Patricia in the eye and said, done. Because sometimes you have to say yes first and figure out how later. That's when I knew this wasn't just about proving Marcus wrong anymore. This was about proving myself right. About building something real. About refusing to be small just because someone told me I should be. And if you've ever had to rebuild yourself from nothing, you know, sometimes rage is the best fuel there is. If this story is hitting you right where it hurts, make sure you check the description box below for more stories about people who refused to give up when everyone counted them out. 60 days to build a functional platform with no money sounds impossible because it is impossible, unless you're desperate enough to make it work anyway. I spent the first week of January in a blur of research and panic. I needed a tech solution, and I needed it cheap. I scoured freelancer websites, posted in nursing forums, reached out to every connection I had who might know someone who knew someone who could code. What I found was a 24-year-old developer named Tyler Kim, working out of his parents' basement in Queens, who'd built a scheduling app for his girlfriend's salon and was looking to expand his portfolio. His rate was reasonable, meaning barely above minimum wage, and he was hungry enough to take a chance on equity over immediate payment. We met at a Starbucks in Flushing on a freezing Tuesday morning. Tyler showed up in a Metallica t-shirt and ripped jeans, looking like he'd rolled out of bed 5 minutes before. He pulled out a battered laptop covered in coding stickers and listened while I explained what I needed. So it's basically a marketplace, he said, chewing his lip. Hospitals post shifts, nurses claim them, you handle the matching and compliance. Yeah, I can build that. Database architecture is straightforward. The UI is the tricky part, needs to be intuitive enough that exhausted nurses can use it at 2 a.m. without instructions. I loved him immediately. How long? I asked. Full functionality? Probably 3 months with testing. I have 60 days. He whistled. That's tight. I'll give you 10% equity in the company and first priority for payment once we're profitable. Plus, if this works, you'll have a legitimate platform in your portfolio that's actually being used. Tyler looked at me for a long moment, like he was calculating risk versus reward. Then he grinned. Fuck it. Let's build something. We shook hands over lukewarm coffee, and I walked out of that Starbucks feeling like I'd just jumped off a cliff without checking if there was water below. The next 8 weeks were the hardest of my life. I was working 3 12-hour shifts per week at the hospital, barely sleeping, surviving on coffee and spite. Every moment I wasn't at work, I was building MedStaff solutions. I'd meet Tyler at coffee shops, libraries, anywhere with Wi-Fi and tables. He'd code while I worked on the business side, creating contracts, developing the vetting process for nurses, building relationships with hospital administrators, designing marketing materials on Canva because I couldn't afford a real designer. Rachel thought I was losing my mind. She'd swing by my apartment and find me at 2 a.m. surrounded by paperwork, protein bar wrappers, and enough coffee cups to stock a cafe. "You need to sleep," she'd say. "I'll sleep when this launches. Sarah, you look like death. Death with a purpose." She'd sigh and usually stay anyway, helping me organize contracts or reviewing my pitch deck or just sitting with me so I wasn't completely alone in my obsession. Meanwhile, Marcus kept calling about the divorce paperwork. Every conversation was the same, him being reasonable, me being difficult. Both of us dancing around the fact that our marriage had died the night he called me a failure. In mid-February, he called with an update I didn't ask for. "Jenna's launching next week," he said. "She's doing a whole event at this wellness center in Tribeca. Influencer gifting, media coverage, the works. It's going to be huge." "Good for her," I said flatly. I was reviewing nursing certifications while we talked, barely paying attention. "You should see the pre-orders she's already gotten. We're talking 6 figures in projected first quarter revenue." Something about his tone, this smugness, this need to prove he'd bet on the right horse, made me snap. "Marcus, why are you telling me this? I just thought you'd want to know. She's really doing it. The business is real. Right. And mine isn't. That's what you're saying." "I didn't say that. You didn't have to." I closed my laptop. "You've made it very clear what you think of my capabilities. You don't need to keep reminding me." "Jesus, Sarah, I'm just trying to share good news. Why do you have to make everything about you?" The audacity of that question after he'd spent years making my dreams about his skepticism was almost funny. "I have to go," I said. "I have a business to build." "Right. Your business." The way he said it, with air quotes I could hear through the phone, made my blood boil. "How's that going, by the way? Found any investors yet?" "Working on it." "That's what you said 3 months ago." "And I'm still working on it. Some of us don't have family members willing to hand over 6 figures. Jenna earned that investment. She put in the work. So am I. Are you though?" His voice had that sharp edge now, the one he got when he was about to say something cruel and pretend it was honesty. "Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you're just spinning your wheels, pretending to be something you're not. Maybe you should accept that nursing is enough. It's a good career. There's no shame in just being a nurse. Just being a nurse. Like the work I did, keeping people alive, holding their hands when they were scared, being the last face some people saw before surgery and the first face they saw after, was somehow less than Jenna's supplement company. You know what, Marcus? I hope Jenna's business is everything you think it'll be. I hope she makes millions. I hope you feel vindicated in your investment." "I will be." "Good. Because when MedStaff Solutions launches and starts changing how hospitals staff their surgical units, when I'm the one speaking at conferences and getting written up in healthcare journals, I want you to remember this conversation. I want you to remember that you thought I was just a nurse. That you thought I couldn't do this. Sarah. I'm done. Sign the divorce papers. Move on with your life. Let me move on with mine." I hung up and immediately burst into tears. Not because he'd hurt me, I was past that, but because I was so tired. Tired of fighting. Tired of proving myself. Tired of carrying this massive weight of expectation and spite and determination that kept me going but also kept me from ever resting. Rachel found me 20 minutes later, ugly crying into my couch cushions. She didn't ask questions. Just climbed onto the couch next to me and let me cry until I was empty. He's wrong, she finally said. You know that, right? Most days. Every day. He's wrong every single day. You're going to do this thing, Sarah. You're going to build this company, and it's going to work, and he's going to hate himself for being too stupid to see what you could do. I wanted to believe her. Some days I did. Other days I wondered if Marcus was right, if I was delusional, if this whole thing was just elaborate self-deception dressed up as ambition. But I didn't have time for doubt. I had 53 days until Patricia expected a functional platform, and doubt doesn't build businesses. Tyler and I worked like we were possessed. He'd code 18-hour stretches fueled by energy drinks and low-fi hip-hop. I'd test every feature, breaking things so he could fix them, making sure the user experience was clean enough that an exhausted nurse scrolling at midnight could navigate it without thinking. We built the nurse registration system first. Background checks, license verification, certification uploads. Then the hospital dashboard where admin could post shifts with specific requirements. Then the matching algorithm that would prioritize nurses based on proximity, specialization, and past performance ratings. It wasn't pretty. It wasn't perfect. But by mid-March, it worked. I scheduled a demo with Patricia and Vanessa for March 19th. The night before, Tyler and I ran through the entire system one more time, testing every possible path a user might take, fixing tiny bugs, polishing the interface until 2 a.m. This is good, Tyler said, closing his laptop. This is really fucking good. It's enough. It's more than enough. Trust me. I wanted to. I really did. The demo went better than I could have hoped. Patricia asked hard questions, poked at potential weaknesses, tested edge cases. But the platform held. By the end of the hour, she pulled out a contract. 6-month pilot, she said. We'll post all our per diem surgical shifts through your platform. You deliver qualified nurses within the time parameters, you get paid. You screw up, we terminate. Deal. My hands shook as I signed. Deal. Vanessa hugged me in the parking lot after, and I almost started crying again. You did it, she whispered. You actually fucking did it. But I hadn't done it yet. I had a contract with one hospital. I needed nurses to fill the shifts. I needed more hospital clients. I needed 100 things to go right for this to work. Still, that night I let myself celebrate. Rachel brought over champagne, cheap stuff, but it tasted like victory, and we got drunk in my studio apartment, toasting to possibilities and new beginnings and proving people wrong. Marcus is going to lose his mind when he finds out, Rachel said, pouring us both another glass. If he finds out. When? When he finds out. Because this is going to work, and you're going to be undeniable. I held on to that thought like a lifeline. If you're still here with me, still believing in what we're building together, make sure you're subscribed because you're going to want to see what comes next. And check the description box below. I promise you, the best is yet to come. MedStaff Solutions officially launched on April 1st. I spent the entire morning convinced it would be a disaster, that no nurses would sign up, that the few shifts Brooklyn General posted would sit empty and I'd have to call Patricia and admit failure. Instead, within the first hour, 17 nurses registered on the platform. By the end of the day, 43. By the end of the week, over 100. It turned out there was a massive pool of experienced nurses who wanted flexibility, women with kids who couldn't commit to full-time schedules, nurses who'd left the profession because of burnout but missed the work, new grads who wanted to build experience across multiple hospitals. They'd been waiting for something like this. We just had to exist. The shifts filled. Not all of them immediately, not perfectly, but they filled. Brooklyn General posted 12 per diem surgical shifts in that first week. We filled 9. Patricia called it acceptable but needs improvement. I called it a miracle. Tyler built an automated rating system where hospitals could review nurses and nurses could review hospitals. Good nurses got priority placement. Hospitals with consistently poor ratings got flagged for review. The system started regulating itself almost immediately. By May, we'd onboarded 3 more hospitals, 2 in Manhattan, 1 in the Bronx. I was working around the clock, balancing my nursing shifts with running the business, barely sleeping, living on adrenaline and the slowly growing conviction that this might actually work. Rachel started handling some of the administrative work, contract paperwork, invoice processing, customer service emails. I couldn't pay her yet, but she insisted on helping anyway. "You're going to pay me back with interest when this thing takes off," she said. "Plus, my current job is soul-crushing. This at least feels meaningful." The money started trickling in. Not much. After paying Tyler and covering platform costs, I was barely breaking even, but it was real money. Money I'd earned. Money that proved Marcus wrong with every single dollar. In June, I got an email from a healthcare blog called *Modern Medicine* asking if they could interview me about MedStaff Solutions for an article on innovative staffing solutions. My hands shook reading it. This was real press. Real validation. The interview happened over video call. The journalist, a woman named Amanda Torres, asked smart questions about the business model, the technology, the problem we were solving. At the end, she asked, "What made you decide to start this company?" I almost told her the truth, that I'd started it to prove my ex-husband wrong, to show him I wasn't a failure, to build something so undeniable he'd have to choke on his own skepticism. But that felt petty on camera. So I said something about seeing a problem in the healthcare system and wanting to solve it. The article came out in early July. *MedStaff Solutions, one nurse's answer to the healthcare staffing crisis. They called me a healthcare innovator. They included a photo Tyler had taken of me at Brooklyn General, looking professional and competent and nothing like the crying mess who'd left her marriage 7 months earlier. I posted the article on LinkedIn with a simple caption, *grateful to modern medicine for sharing our story. If you're a nurse looking for flexible work or a hospital struggling with staffing, let's connect. The post got 37 responses in the first day. 3 were from hospital administrators interested in partnering. 12 were from nurses wanting to join the platform. 1 was from a venture capital firm asking if I'd be interested in discussing growth funding. And 1 was from Marcus. His message was brief. Saw your article. Congrats. Looks like things are going well. I stared at those 2 sentences for a long time. No apology. No acknowledgement of everything he'd said about my failure. Just a bland, minimal recognition that maybe, possibly, I was doing something real. I didn't respond. What was there to say? But I did do something petty. I checked Jenna's Instagram. Nourish by Jenna had grown to 15,000 followers. Her launch event in February had looked polished and professional. Photos of her standing behind a table full of her supplements and skincare products, surrounded by influencers holding branded gift bags, everyone glowing under perfect lighting. But when I scrolled through her recent posts, something felt off. The engagement was declining. Her posts from April had hundreds of likes and dozens of comments. By June, she was getting maybe 60 likes and a handful of generic comments that looked suspiciously like bots. Her last 3 posts were promotional, discount codes, sales, limited time offers. The kind of desperate marketing you see when things aren't going as planned. I shouldn't have felt satisfaction. It made me a smaller person. But I did feel it anyway, sharp and sweet. By August, MedStaff Solutions had 12 hospital clients and over 300 registered nurses. We were processing nearly 200 shift placements per month. I'd quit my job at St. Michael's to run the business full-time, a terrifying decision that felt like jumping without a net, but necessary. Rachel came on officially as operations manager. Tyler became chief technology officer, which he thought was hilarious given he was still living in his parents' basement. I hired 2 more people. A recruiter named Marcus, yes, really, and yes, it was awkward every time I said his name, to handle nurse vetting, and a saleswoman named Diane who had 20 years of experience in medical sales and could charm hospital administrators like nobody I'd ever seen. We moved into an actual office, a small space in Long Island City that cost more than I wanted to spend but felt essential for credibility. It had a conference room with a whiteboard, desks for the team, and a tiny kitchen where we kept it stocked with coffee and those granola bars that taste like cardboard but keep you alive during long days. I was paying myself a salary now. Not much, $35,000 a year, barely above poverty level for New York, but it was mine. Money I'd earned by building something from nothing. The divorce was finalized in September. I signed the papers at my lawyer's office on a Thursday afternoon, and it felt like closing a book I'd been trapped inside. Marcus kept the apartment. I kept my freedom and my business. The judge approved the settlement without comment. I thought I'd feel something dramatic when it was over, relief or sadness or anger. Instead, I just felt tired. Tired and ready to be done looking backward. But I wasn't done. Not even close. In October, I got a call from a hospital network in New Jersey, 3 hospitals looking for a comprehensive staffing solution. If I could deliver, it would be our biggest contract yet. The kind of contract that would triple our revenue and establish us as a serious player in the market. I spent 2 weeks preparing the pitch. Tyler built custom demos showing how we could scale to handle their volume. Rachel put together projections that were aggressive but defensible. Diane coached me on presentation style, making me practice until I could deliver the pitch in my sleep. The presentation was scheduled for October 29th at their corporate headquarters in Newark. The night before, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed in my studio apartment, staring at the ceiling, thinking about how far I'd come and how far I still had to go. My phone buzzed at midnight. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk, hey Sarah. It's Jenna. Can we talk? Asterisk. I stared at the message, my heart suddenly pounding. Jenna. Marcus's sister. The one who'd gotten $100,000 while I got called a failure. I shouldn't have responded. Nothing good could come from engaging. But curiosity won. Asterisk about what? Asterisk. 3 dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Asterisk I need advice. Business stuff. Marcus said you're doing really well. Asterisk. Every instinct screamed at me to ignore her. But a part of me, the part that was still angry, still hurting, still wanting to twist the knife, wanted to know what she'd say. Asterisk I'm kind of busy. What specifically? Asterisk. Asterisk can I call you? Asterisk. Asterisk it's midnight. Asterisk. Asterisk please. I'm kind of desperate. Asterisk. Against my better judgment, I called her. Jenna answered on the first ring. Sarah. Thank you for calling. I know this is weird. Very weird. I don't know who else to ask. Marcus he's being difficult about this. And I saw your article, and I just thought maybe you'd understand. Understand what? She was quiet for a moment. Then, my business is failing. I'm out of money and I don't know what to do. I sat up in bed. What happened? Everything. The product costs were higher than projected. The influencer partnerships didn't convert to actual sales. My fulfillment company screwed up 2 major orders. Customer acquisition costs are insane. I spent $90,000 and I've made maybe $30,000 in revenue. I'm drowning. Part of me wanted to hang up. Part of me wanted to gloat. But a bigger part, the part that had been where she was, desperate and failing and alone, felt something uncomfortably close to sympathy. What does Marcus say? He says I need to be patient. That startups take time. But Sarah, I don't have time. I maxed out 2 credit cards trying to keep this going. I'm about to get evicted because I can't make rent. He won't give me more money. Says he's tapped out from the initial investment. You spent all 100,000. 110. The last 10 was my own savings. On what? Inventory, mostly. I have 10,000 units of supplements sitting in a warehouse in Pennsylvania that I can't sell. The packaging alone cost $40,000. The website was 30. Influencer partnerships were another 25. Everything just cost more than I expected. I'd seen this story before. Enthusiastic founder, more passion than planning, costs spiraling out of control. It was a case study in what not to do. Did you do market research? Financial modeling? I thought I did. But I think I just wanted it to work so badly I convinced myself the numbers would work out. There was something honest in her voice. Something vulnerable I hadn't expected. Jenna, why are you calling me? Because you made it work. You started with nothing and you built something real. And I thought maybe you could tell me how. I started with a business plan. 3 years of research. Industry connections. Actual understanding of the market I was entering. So you're saying I was stupid? I'm saying you were unprepared. Those aren't the same thing. She laughed bitterly. Marcus keeps telling me I'm brilliant. That the market just isn't ready yet. But I think he's wrong. I think I screwed up. Hearing her doubt Marcus's judgment, was unexpectedly satisfying. Can I ask you something? I said. Yeah. Did he ever doubt you? When you pitched him, did he ask hard questions? Make you prove your projections? No. He believed me. He kept saying I was going to be huge, that wellness was the future, that I had what it took. Right. Why? Because he wanted you to succeed more than he wanted to see reality. Because he loved you more than he loved me. Because believing in you was easy and believing in me would have required challenging his own prejudices. But I didn't say that. Look, I can't save your business. I'm not a consultant. But I can tell you this, sometimes the best thing you can do is cut your losses. If the business isn't viable, shut it down before you destroy yourself trying to save it. That's what you do. That's what I'd do if I were you. But you have to decide for yourself. We talked for another 20 minutes. I gave her some basic advice, how to liquidate inventory, how to negotiate with creditors, how to close a business cleanly. By the end, she was crying. I'm sorry, she said. About everything. About what Marcus said to you. I didn't know until recently. He told me last month, after the divorce was final. He told me what he said to you, about being a failure. Sarah, I'm so sorry. It's not your fault. But I took his money. I took what should have been yours. He chose to give it to you. That was his decision. Still, I'm sorry. And for what it's worth, I think you're incredible. What you built, it's real. It matters. Mine was just vanity. After we hung up, I lay in bed for a long time, processing the conversation. Jenna's business was collapsing. The $100,000 Marcus had invested was gone. And I'd built something sustainable with nothing. The universe, it seemed, had a sense of humor. The pitch in Newark the next day went perfectly. The hospital network signed a 3-year contract. On my drive home, stuck in traffic on the New Jersey Turnpike, my phone rang. Rachel. You're not going to believe this, she said. Try me. Diane just got off the phone with a reporter from Forbes Star. They want to do a feature on you. On MedStaff Solutions. They're doing a piece on women founders disrupting healthcare. I had to pull over because my hands were shaking too hard to drive. Forbes Star. Forbes wanted to write about me. Sarah, you there? I'm here. I need a minute. Girl, you did it. You actually fucking did it. I sat in my car on the side of the highway, watching trucks thunder past, and I let myself feel it, all of it. The vindication. The pride. The bone-deep satisfaction of proving everyone wrong. Marcus had called me a failure. Had given his sister everything while giving me nothing but doubt. And I'd won anyway. If you're still with me on this journey, drop a comment below and tell me, have you ever proved someone wrong who didn't believe in you? Because this feeling, this moment right here, is what we've been building toward. And trust me, we're not done yet. Check the description box below for more stories about people who turned rejection into rocket fuel. The Forbes interview happened over 2 sessions, one video call and one in-person visit to our Long Island City office. The journalist was a woman named Keisha Brown who specialized in covering women in business and had that razor-sharp intelligence that made you very careful about every word you said. She asked about my background, my nursing career, what led me to start MedStaff Solutions. I gave her the sanitized version, saw a gap in the market, wanted to solve a problem, had the industry expertise to make it work. I didn't mention Marcus. Didn't mention Jenna. Didn't mention the rage and spite that had fueled those first brutal months. Tell me about funding, Keisha said, her pen poised over her notebook. How did you finance the initial launch? Personal savings and sweat equity. I couldn't get traditional funding. Banks saw me as too high risk. So I bootstrapped everything. Found a developer willing to work for equity. Lived on the absolute minimum. Bet everything on the idea working. No angel investors. No friends and family funding. No. I kept my face neutral. I built this alone. She studied me for a moment, like she could sense there was more to the story. But she just nodded and moved on. The article came out in late November, time to coincide with their 30 under 40, Women Disrupting Healthcare issue. Except I was 33, so they fudged it to 35 under 40 for that year's edition. The headline read, How one nurse built $1 million staffing platform from her studio apartment. $1 million was an exaggeration. We weren't quite there yet, but we were close enough that it felt true. The article was 3 pages, including photos of me in the office, at Brooklyn General, standing in front of the MedStaff Solutions logo Tyler had designed. They called me tenacious, innovative, and a force of nature in the healthcare staffing space. I read the article sitting in my office at 6 a.m., before anyone else arrived, and I cried. Not sad crying. Overwhelmed crying. The kind where you realize you've climbed a mountain you didn't think you could summit and you're standing at the top looking down at how far you've come. Rachel was the first to arrive that morning. She took one look at me and said, You read it. I read it. And I think I might throw up. She laughed and pulled me into a hug. This is it, Sarah. This is the moment everything changes. She was right. Within hours of the article going live, my email exploded. Interview requests from podcasts and healthcare blogs. Hospital administrators wanting to discuss partnerships. Nurses asking how to join the platform. Venture capital firms wanting to schedule meetings. And one email from Marcus. Subject line, Congratulations. I stared at it for a long time before opening it. Sarah. Just read the Forbes piece. It's impressive. Really impressive. You've built something real, and I'm genuinely happy for you. I've been thinking a lot about our last conversation, about things I said before you left. I was wrong. About the business, about your capabilities, about a lot of things. You're not a failure. You never were. I know this doesn't fix anything, and I'm not asking for anything in return. I just wanted you to know that I see what you've accomplished, and I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Marcus. I read it 3 times. Looking for the catch, the backhanded compliment, the subtle way he'd make it about him. But it seemed genuine. As genuine as Marcus was capable of being. I should have felt vindicated. Triumphant. Validated. Instead, I just felt tired. Because his apology didn't change anything. It didn't give me back the year I'd spent doubting myself. It didn't erase the nights I'd cried from exhaustion and fear. It didn't return the support I'd needed when I'd needed it most. I deleted the email without responding. 2 weeks later, in early December, I got a call from the New Jersey Hospital Network. They wanted to expand our contract to include 2 more hospitals in their system. The contract value jumped from $300,000 per year to $700,000. We were officially profitable. Not just breaking even, not just surviving, actually making money. Real money. The kind that let me pay my team competitive salaries, lease better office space, invest in platform improvements. I moved out of my studio apartment in Astoria and into a one-bedroom in Brooklyn Heights with a view of the Manhattan skyline. It was expensive, more than I probably should have spent, but I'd been living like a monk for over a year and I wanted one tangible symbol of success. Every morning I woke up to that view and reminded myself that I'd earned it. Christmas that year was different. I hosted dinner at my new apartment. Rachel and her boyfriend, Tyler, and his girlfriend, Diane, Marcus the recruiter and his wife. We drank good wine and ate catered food and toasted to MedStaff Solutions and the year ahead. At one point, Rachel pulled me aside in the kitchen. "You know what's wild?" she said. "What?" "A year ago, you were alone on Christmas eating Chinese food and wondering if any of this would work. Now look at you. You're hosting dinner parties and getting written up in * Forbes star. It's surreal. It's deserved. You worked your ass off for this. We worked our asses off. Fair. But it was your vision. Your refusal to quit. That's what made this happen." I hugged her tightly. "Thank you. For believing in me when I didn't believe in myself. Always." The new year started with momentum. In January, we expanded to Connecticut and New Jersey, adding 15 new hospital clients. By February, we'd processed over 5,000 shift placements and had nearly 800 registered nurses. Tyler's platform was holding up beautifully, scaling without breaking. We'd hired 2 more developers to help him handle the growing technical demands. The user interface was clean, intuitive, almost addictive in how simple it made everything feel. In March, I got a call that changed everything. A venture capital firm called Sequoia Healthcare Partners wanted to meet about Series A funding. They specialized in healthcare tech and had a portfolio of successful companies that had scaled nationally. The partner who called, a man named David Chen, said they'd been tracking MedStaff Solutions since the *Forbes* article and were impressed by our growth trajectory. "We think you could be a national player," he said. "Not just New York and New Jersey. Everywhere. But you'd need capital to scale that fast." "How much capital?" "We'd be looking at a $5 million investment for 30% equity." I almost dropped the phone. $5 million. For 30% of a company I'd built with $8,000 and spite. "I'd need to talk to my team," I managed to say. "Of course. We'd like to schedule a pitch meeting for next month. Can you put together a presentation on your growth strategy?" "Absolutely." After I hung up, I sat very still in my office, processing what had just happened. $5 million would let us expand nationally, build out the platform, hire a full sales team, maybe even acquire competitors. It would turn MedStaff Solutions from a regional success into a legitimate national company. It would also mean giving up some control. 30% equity meant bringing in partners who'd have a say in how we ran things. But it also meant validation at the highest level. VCs only invested in companies they thought could return 10 times their investment. They thought we could be worth $50 million. I called an emergency team meeting. Rachel, Tyler, Diane, and Marcus the recruiter gathered in our conference room. I told them about the Sequoia offer. Tyler whistled. $5 million. Holy shit. What's the catch? Diane asked. She was always the skeptical one, which was why she was good at her job. 30% equity. Board seat. Probably aggressive growth targets. Is it worth it? Rachel asked. I don't know. That's why I wanted to talk to all of you. This affects everyone. We spent 2 hours discussing it. The pros, capital to scale, validation, resources, connections. The cons, pressure, loss of control, expectations we might not be able to meet. Finally, Tyler said, I think we have to do it. Not because we need the money, we're profitable now, we could grow slowly on our own. but because this is our chance to build something massive, to actually disrupt the entire healthcare staffing industry. If we don't take the shot, we'll always wonder what could have been. Everyone nodded. All right, I said. Let's take the shot. The pitch meeting was scheduled for April 15th at Sequoia's offices in Midtown Manhattan. I spent 3 weeks preparing. Rachel and I built financial models showing 5-year projections. Tyler created demos of planned platform features. Diane put together market analysis showing the size of the opportunity. I practiced the pitch until I could do it backward. Rachel played devil's advocate, hitting me with every difficult question she could think of. By the time April 15th arrived, I was ready. The Sequoia offices were everything you'd expect from a successful VC firm: floor-to-ceiling windows, expensive furniture, an espresso machine that probably cost more than my first car. David Chen met us in the lobby with 2 other partners, a woman named Sarah Patel and a man named James Morrison. We sat in a conference room with a view of Central Park, and I pitched them on the future of MedStaff solutions. I talked about the problem: hospitals bleeding money on staffing agencies, nurses burnt out by inflexible schedules. I showed them our solution, a tech-enabled platform that made staffing as easy as ordering an Uber. I walked them through our numbers: growth rate, customer acquisition costs, lifetime value, margins. Then I showed them the vision. National expansion. Platform enhancements including AI-powered shift matching. Expansion beyond nursing into other healthcare roles: respiratory therapists, radiology techs, surgical techs. Partnerships with medical schools to create a pipeline of new talent. We're not just a staffing company, I said. We're building the infrastructure that will let healthcare professionals work on their own terms while ensuring hospitals never face critical shortages. We're changing how an entire industry operates. When I finished, there was silence. Then David smiled. That was an excellent pitch, he said. We have some questions, but I want to be upfront. We're very interested. The questions were tough. They pushed on our competitive advantages, our defensibility, our customer concentration risk, our burn rate projections. But I had answers. Good answers. Answers backed by real data and real success. At the end of 2 hours, David said, we'll need to do due diligence, obviously. Financial audits, customer references, technical review. But assuming everything checks out, I think we can make this work. We'd want to move quickly. We're looking at a term sheet by end of month. I shook his hand, feeling like I was floating. On the elevator ride down, Rachel grabbed my arm. Holy shit. That happened. That actually happened. We haven't signed anything yet. But they want to. Sarah, they want to give us $5 million. I leaned against the elevator wall and laughed. Yeah, they do. That night, I sat in my apartment with a glass of wine, looking out at the Manhattan skyline, and I let myself think about Marcus for the first time in months. I wondered if he'd heard about the Sequoia deal yet. Wondered what he'd think when he did. Wondered if he'd tell Jenna, whose business had quietly shut down in January after she'd run out of money and couldn't find more funding. I wondered if he ever thought about that conversation in our kitchen, when he'd called me a failure and told me I didn't have business acumen. And I realized something. I didn't care anymore. His opinion had stopped mattering somewhere along the way. Maybe when the first hospital signed. Maybe when the *Forbes* article came out. Maybe that very moment, sitting in my apartment, celebrating a victory he'd never thought I could achieve. His belief in me had never been necessary. The only belief that mattered was my own. And you know what? If you're building something right now, something people doubt, something that feels impossible, I need you to hear this. Their doubt doesn't define your potential. Your belief in yourself is the only permission slip you need. If this story is resonating with you, make sure you're subscribed and check the description box below for more stories about people who turn their pain into power. The due diligence process was brutal. Sequoia sent in forensic accountants who went through every transaction we'd ever made. They interviewed our hospital clients, our nurses, our team members. They stress-tested our technology, looking for security vulnerabilities and scalability issues. They questioned every projection, every assumption, every claim we'd made. It was invasive and exhausting and absolutely necessary. Because if we were going to take $5 million, they needed to be sure we were worth it. The process took 6 weeks. 6 weeks of conference calls and document requests and sleepless nights worrying they'd find something that would kill the deal. But in late May, David called with news. "We're in," he said. "Term sheet is coming over today. Assuming you're good with the terms, we can close by mid-June." I read the term sheet with my lawyer, a sharp woman named Patricia Gomez who specialized in venture capital deals. The terms were mostly what were discussed: $5 million for 30% equity, with a board seat for Sequoia and some standard protective provisions. But there was one clause that gave me pause: growth targets. Sequoia expected us to triple our revenue within 18 months. If we didn't hit those targets, they had the right to bring in new management. "That's aggressive," Patricia said. "Tripling in 18 months means you'd need to expand to at least 10 new states and increase your hospital client base by 300%. Is it doable? With $5 million? Maybe. But it'll require perfect execution. No major mistakes. No unexpected problems." I thought about it for a long time. The safe play was to say no, to grow slowly, to maintain control. But the big play, the play that could turn MedStaff Solutions into a household name, required taking the risk. "I'm doing it," I said. We signed the term sheet on June 3rd. The money hit our account on June 15th. $5 million. More money than I'd ever imagined having access to. The first thing we did was hire aggressively. We brought on a chief operating officer named Marcus. Yes, another Marcus. And yes, it was still weird, who'd scaled a healthcare software company from regional to national. We hired 10 more salespeople, a full marketing team, 3 additional developers, and a head of HR to manage the growing team. We moved into a bigger office in Chelsea, a full floor with room for 50 people, proper conference rooms, an actual break room with a fridge and a dishwasher. It felt surreal walking into that space knowing it was ours. The second thing we did was expand geographically. We targeted 10 states: Connecticut, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Maryland, Virginia, Ohio, Illinois, Michigan, and Florida. Big states with major hospital systems and nursing shortages. Diane and her sales team worked like demons, flying to different cities every week, pitching hospital administrators, closing deals. Tyler's team built out state-specific platform features to handle different licensing requirements and regulations. Rachel kept everything organized, making sure we didn't collapse under the weight of our own growth. By September, we'd signed hospital clients in 8 of our 10 target states. We'd processed over 30,000 shift placements. Our registered nurse base had grown to over 3,000. The revenue numbers were staggering. We'd gone from $700,000 annually to projecting $3.2 million for the year. If we maintained that trajectory, we'd hit Sequoia's targets ahead of schedule. But growth at that speed breaks things. Our customer service response times slipped. We had platform outages. Some nurses complained about delayed payments. A few hospital clients had shifts go unfilled because our matching algorithm couldn't handle the volume. We fixed everything as fast as we could, but it was like playing whack-a-mole. Every problem we solved revealed 2 more problems underneath. In October, we had our first crisis. A hospital in Philadelphia sued us because one of our nurses had falsified her credentials and they'd placed her in a pediatric surgical unit. She'd gotten through our vetting process by using forged documents. The hospital caught it during a routine credential check, but not before she'd worked 3 shifts. They were furious, claiming we'd endangered patient safety and threatening $1 million lawsuit. I flew to Philadelphia with our COO Marcus and our lawyer Patricia. We sat in a conference room with the hospital's legal team and their CEO, a stern woman named Dr. Catherine Walsh, who looked at me like I was personally responsible for putting children at risk. "This is unacceptable," she said. "You guaranteed that all nurses were properly vetted. You claimed your platform was reliable. And you put an unqualified person in our pediatric unit. You're absolutely right, I said. This is on us. We failed. Our vetting process missed something it shouldn't have missed, and we take full responsibility. She seemed surprised by the admission. People usually lawyer up and dodge blame. But I was too tired for games. Here's what we're going to do, I continued. We're implementing a new 3-tier verification system. Every credential will be independently verified by 2 separate third-party services. We're adding real-time license status checks. We're requiring video interviews for every single nurse. And we're offering you a full refund for the past 6 months of service plus a year of free service as compensation. That doesn't change the fact that you put patients at risk. No, it doesn't. Nothing I say can change that. But it ensures it never happens again. And if you give us the chance, we'll prove we deserve your trust. Dr. Walsh studied me for a long moment. Then she nodded. We'll hold you to that. The lawsuit went away. The new verification system cost us a fortune to implement, but it was worth it. We couldn't afford another failure like that. Not when we were growing this fast, not when we were becoming a national company, not when people's lives literally depended on the quality of nurses we placed. In November, something unexpected happened. A competitor emerged. QuickNurse, funded by a different VC firm, launched with a very similar platform and an aggressive marketing campaign. They'd clearly studied what we'd built and decided to copy it, but with more capital behind them, they'd raised $8 million in their first round. Their ads were everywhere. Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, trade publications. They were undercutting our prices and poaching our nurses with signing bonuses. In our first board meeting after QuickNurse launched, David from Sequoia asked the question everyone was thinking, are they an existential threat? Maybe, I admitted. They've got more money, they're moving fast, and they're targeting our exact market. So what's our competitive advantage? Quality. They're focused on growth at any cost. We're focused on getting it right. Hospitals don't want the cheapest option, they want the best option. The nurses they care about, the ones who make their units run smoothly, trust us. That's worth more than faster growth. Is it though? Asked Sarah Patel, the other Sequoia partner. Because from where I'm sitting, they're going to eat your lunch while you're focused on quality. It was a fair question. And I didn't have a perfect answer. What I did have was 8 months of data showing that our nurse retention rates were 40% higher than industry average, that our hospitals had lower incident rates when using our nurses versus other agencies, that our customer satisfaction scores were consistently in the high 90s. We're playing the long game, I said. They're playing the fast game. Let's see who's still here in a year. That meeting shook me. For the first time since taking Sequoia's money, I felt the weight of their expectations. They weren't just investors, they were owners now. They had a say. And if I didn't deliver, they had the right to replace me. I channeled that fear into focus. We doubled down on customer service. I personally called every hospital client to check in, to make sure they were happy, to hear their concerns before they became problems. We launched a referral program that incentivized hospitals to bring in other hospitals. We created a premium tier with guaranteed response times and dedicated account managers. By December, QuickNurse growth had slowed. Their aggressive pricing was unsustainable, and they'd started getting negative reviews about nurse quality. 3 hospitals had dropped them after problem placements. We, meanwhile, had quietly added 15 more hospital clients and maintained our quality standards. In the annual board meeting just before Christmas, David looked at our numbers and smiled. You were right about the long game. We're not done yet. No. But you're winning. The year ended with MedStaff Solutions at $4.1 million in revenue, 47 hospital clients across 9 states, and over 4,000 registered nurses. We'd tripled our revenue in 7 months. Sequoia's targets suddenly looked achievable. On New Year's Eve, I threw a party for the team at a rooftop bar in Brooklyn. 50 people showed up, employees, nurses, some of our hospital clients, Rachel's boyfriend, Tyler's girlfriend. We drank champagne and toasted to the year ahead. At midnight, watching fireworks explode over Manhattan, Rachel hugged me and whispered, "You did it. You actually built an empire." I looked around at all these people whose lives were connected to something I'd created from nothing, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years: contentment. Not happiness exactly, but something deeper. Purpose. Meaning. The sense that I was doing exactly what I was supposed to be doing. And then my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Asterisk Sarah, this is Marcus. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I just drove past your company's headquarters. I saw the MedStaff Solutions sign on the building. I'm sitting in my car and I can't stop thinking about how wrong I was. About everything. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserved support and belief and partnership. Instead, I gave you doubt and dismissal. I just needed you to know that I see it now. I see what you built. I see who you are. And I'm sorry I didn't see it when it mattered. Asterisk. I stared at the message for a long time. Around me, people laughed and celebrated and started the new year full of hope. And I held my phone with Marcus's apology glowing on the screen, and I felt nothing. Not satisfaction. Not vindication. Not even anger. Just nothing. His apology was 2 years too late and entirely irrelevant. I'd stopped building this for him somewhere along the way. I'd stopped trying to prove him wrong and started trying to prove myself right. I deleted the message and put my phone away. Rachel saw my expression. "You okay?" "Yeah," I said. And I meant it. "I really am." But the universe, apparently, wasn't done with me yet. Because 3 days into January, I got a phone call that would change everything one more time. If you're still here, still riding this roller coaster with me, I need you to do something. Comment below and tell me, what would you have said to that text? And make sure you're subscribed because the next chapter is where everything I thought I knew gets turned upside down. Check the description box below for more stories like this. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next. The call came on a Tuesday morning. I was in the office early, reviewing Q4 financials before our 8 a.m. strategy meeting, when my phone rang. Unknown number with a 917 area code, New York City. I almost didn't answer. But something made me pick up. Sarah Mitchell. A woman's voice, professional but strained. Speaking. "This is Jenna Chen, Marcus's sister. Please don't hang up." My hand tightened on the phone. "What do you want, Jenna?" "I need to talk to you. In person. It's about Marcus." "I have nothing to say about Marcus. Please. Just, can we meet for coffee? 30 minutes. I wouldn't ask if it wasn't important." Every instinct told me to say no. But curiosity won again, like it always did where Marcus's family was concerned. "Fine. 1 coffee. 30 minutes. There's a Starbucks on 23rd and 8th. 11 a.m. Thank you. Thank you. I'll be there." I hung up and immediately regretted agreeing. I had no reason to meet with Jenna. Our last conversation had been months ago, when her business was collapsing and she'd called desperate for advice. I'd assumed she'd moved on with her life. Why was she reaching out now? Rachel walked into my office at 10:30. "You look stressed. What's wrong?" "Jenna Chen wants to meet me for coffee." "Marcus's sister Jenna? The supplement disaster Jenna?" "That's the one." "Why?" "She says it's about Marcus. That it's important." Rachel's expression darkened. "Sarah, you don't owe that family anything. Nothing. You've moved on. You've built something incredible. Why would you let them back into your life?" "I'm not. I'm having 1 coffee. hearing what she has to say. Then I'm done. Famous last words. She wasn't wrong. But I went anyway. Jenna was already at the Starbucks when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with 2 cups of coffee. She looked different than I remembered. Thinner, tired, older somehow. The confidence she'd radiated at their family dinners, that effortless assurance that came from being the favorite, was gone. "Thanks for coming," she said as I sat down. "I got you a latte. I remember you used to drink those." "What do you want, Jenna?" She flinched at my tone. "Right. Straight to it. Okay." She took a breath. "Marcus is asking me to call you. Why doesn't he call me himself?" "He did. You didn't respond to his texts. He tried calling last week, but it went straight to voicemail. I think you blocked him." "I did." After the 10th apology text that expected me to absolve him of being a terrible husband, I decided I was done. His not asking for absolution. His asking for help. That caught me off guard. Help with what? Jenna wrapped her hands around her coffee cup. His life is falling apart. The company he worked for downsized in November. He got laid off. He's been job hunting for 2 months, but nothing's working out. His severance ran out. He can't make the mortgage on the apartment. He's about to lose everything. I should have felt something. Sympathy, maybe, or vindictive satisfaction. Instead, I just felt detached, like she was telling me about a stranger's problems. "That's unfortunate," I said. "But I still don't understand why you're telling me this." "Because he needs money. And he doesn't know where else to turn." The audacity of it hit me like a physical blow. "You're asking me for money? After everything?" "Not asking. Marcus is too proud to ask. I'm telling you the situation because I thought you should know. Because despite everything, you were married to him for years. Because maybe you still care enough to." "To what, Jenna? Bail him out? Give him the money he refused to give me? The money he gave you instead, which you lost on a business that was never going to work?" Her face flushed. I know I screwed up. I know the money is gone. I've apologized to Marcus 1,000 times. I offered to pay him back, but I'm barely making rent myself working 2 retail jobs. I'm trying to rebuild. But Sarah, he's my brother. He's drowning. And I don't know what to do. Why would I help him, Jenna? Give me one good reason. Because you're successful now. Because you have the resources. Because, she stopped herself. Because what? Because you're a better person than he was to you. Because you have the chance to be gracious when he wasn't. Because maybe it would help you move on completely if you could help him and prove to yourself that you're past the anger. It was clever, I had to admit. Framing helping Marcus as something that would benefit me, not him. But I wasn't buying it. "Here's what I think is actually happening," I said. "I think Marcus is embarrassed that his ex-wife, the one he called a failure, is now running a multimillion-dollar company while he's unemployed and broke. I think he's desperate and humiliated. And I think he sent you to appeal to whatever lingering affection I might have because he's too proud to face me himself." Jenna didn't deny it. "You're right. About all of it. But does that make his situation less real? Does that mean he deserves to lose his home? He didn't think I deserved help when I needed it." "I know. And that was wrong. He knows that now. Sarah, I'm not defending what he did. I'm just asking you to be the bigger person." I stood up. "I'm not interested in being the bigger person. I'm interested in running my company and living my life. Marcus made his choices. He has to live with the consequences. Just like I had to live with the consequences of his choices." "Sarah, please." "No. I'm done. Don't contact me again. Either of you." I walked out of the Starbucks and headed back to my office, my heart pounding with anger and something else I couldn't quite name. Satisfaction. Maybe. Or vindication. Marcus had called me a failure, had given his sister everything while giving me nothing, had dismissed my dreams as impossible. And now he was the one failing while I succeeded. The universe had balanced the scales. But as I walked the 12 blocks back to our office, something nagged at me. A discomfort I couldn't shake. Because as much as I wanted to feel pure vindication, a part of me, a small, annoying, empathetic part, felt something uncomfortably close to pity. I pushed it away. Marcus didn't deserve my pity. He deserved exactly what he was getting. When I got back to the office, I threw myself into work. We had a major pitch to a hospital network in Florida later that week. I needed to review our proposal, refine the numbers, practice the presentation. I didn't have time to think about Marcus and his problems. But that night, lying in bed in my Brooklyn Heights apartment, staring at the ceiling, I couldn't stop thinking about it. About Jenna's face across that table, tired and desperate. About Marcus losing his job, losing his apartment, losing everything. About how I'd felt in those dark months after leaving him, when I was terrified and alone and convinced I might fail. The difference was, I'd had Rachel. I'd had my own determination. I'd had a plan and the skills to execute it. Marcus had none of that. He had pride and a sister who was too broke to help and an ex-wife who just told him to deal with the consequences. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, * you okay? You left the office without saying bye. ****, I'm fine. Long day. ****, want to talk about it. ***, tomorrow. I need to think. I put the phone down and closed my eyes. But sleep didn't come easy. The next morning, I did something I knew I'd probably regret. I unblocked Marcus's number. Immediately, a flood of texts came through, messages he'd sent over the past few weeks that had been sitting in digital limbo. Sarah, I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I wanted you to know how proud I am of what you've built. I saw the Forbes article. You were right about everything. I was wrong. I lost my job. I don't know what to do. I don't know who else to talk to. I'm sorry. For everything. I know it's too late, but I'm sorry. Jenna told me she was going to reach out to you. I told her not to. This isn't your problem. I'm sorry she bothered you. That last one had been sent yesterday afternoon, an hour after my coffee with Jenna. I stared at the messages for a long time. Then I did something that surprised even me. I called him. He answered on the first ring, his voice rough like he'd been sleeping. Sarah. Don't talk. Just listen. I'm going to say this once, and then we're done. Forever. Okay. You were cruel to me. You dismissed my dreams. You gave your sister everything while giving me nothing but doubt. You made me feel worthless and small. And when I proved you wrong, when I built something real and successful, you wanted credit for apologizing. You wanted me to tell you it was okay, that you were forgiven, that we could be friends or whatever fantasy you'd built in your head. Sarah, I said don't talk. Here's the thing, Marcus. I don't forgive you. I don't think you deserve forgiveness. You were a bad husband and you made choices that hurt me deeply. But I'm also not interested in watching you suffer just because it makes me feel vindicated. That's not who I am. That's not who I want to be. Silence on the other end. I'm going to wire you $25,000, I continued. That's it. Not a loan. Not an investment. A gift. The exact amount I asked you for 3 years ago. The amount you refused to give me because you thought I was a failure. Consider it cosmic justice or karma or whatever you want to call it. Sarah, I can't. You can and you will. Use it to get back on your feet. Pay your mortgage. Buy yourself time to find a job. But understand this, after today, we're done. No more texts. No more calls. No more apologies. You take the money, you fix your life, and you never contact me again. Are we clear? Why are you doing this? Because I'm not doing it for you. I'm doing it for me. Because I need to prove to myself that I'm better than the bitterness. That I can be successful and generous and still maintain my boundaries. This isn't about you deserving help. It's about me deserving peace. I could hear him breathing on the other end, unsteady, like he might be crying. Thank you, he finally whispered. Sarah, thank you. I don't deserve this. You're right. You don't. But I'm giving it to you anyway. Goodbye, Marcus. I hung up before he could respond. Then I transferred $25,000 from my personal account to his. I watched the transaction process, watched that number disappear from my balance, and I felt lighter. Like I'd been carrying something heavy without realizing it, and I'd finally set it down. Rachel called me an hour later. Tyler just told me you transferred money to someone named Marcus Chen. Please tell me that's not who I think it is. It is. Sarah, what the fuck? I know. But I needed to do it. For me, not for him. That's $25,000. I know exactly how much it is. It's the amount he refused to give me when I needed it. Now he needs it, and I'm giving it to him. Not because he deserves it. Because I deserve to be the person who can give it and not feel bitter about it. Rachel was quiet for a moment. You're either the most evolved person I know or you're having some kind of breakdown. Maybe both. Are you okay? Yeah, I said. And I meant it. I really am. That afternoon, I got one final text from Marcus. I got it. Thank you. I'll never forget this. You're a better person than I ever was. I hope you find everything you're looking for. Goodbye, Sarah. I read it, then deleted the message and blocked his number again. This time for good. 2 days later, I was in Tampa pitching the Florida hospital network when I got a call from David at Sequoia. We'd landed the contract, a 3-year deal worth $1.2 million annually. Our biggest contract yet. That night, celebrating with the team at a restaurant overlooking Tampa Bay, I realized something. The story I'd been telling myself for 3 years, the story of revenge and vindication, of proving Marcus wrong, of building success out of spite, that story was over. The new story, the one I was living now, wasn't about Marcus at all. It was about what I'd built, who I'd become, where I was going. He was a footnote, not the plot. And that felt like the real victory. If you're still with me, still invested in this journey, I want you to know, this is where everything changes. Drop a comment and tell me, have you ever had to choose between revenge and peace? Because what happens next is going to test everything I thought I knew about success, about power, and about who I really am. Make sure you check that description box below, because the final chapters are going to take you places you didn't expect. 3 years is a long time in the startup world. Long enough to build an empire or watch one crumble. Long enough to transform from a scrappy underdog into an established player. Long enough to forget who you were when you started and become someone entirely new. By the spring of 2027, MedStaff Solutions was no longer the little company I'd built in my studio apartment. We were operating in 42 states with over 200 hospital clients and 15,000 registered nurses. Our annual revenue had hit $32 million. We'd raised a Series B round from Sequoia and 2 other firms, bringing our total funding to $18 million. We'd moved headquarters to a building in Lower Manhattan, a full 3 floors with 200 employees. We had departments now: sales, marketing, technology, operations, HR, legal, finance. We had executives with impressive titles and MBAs from prestigious schools. We had a culture deck and core values and quarterly offsites. I was the CEO, but sometimes I felt like I was playing dress-up in someone else's life. The day it all changed was a Tuesday in April. I was driving to a speaking engagement at a healthcare conference in Stamford, Connecticut, one of those events where successful founders give inspirational talks about their journey. I'd done dozens of these by now. They followed a script: challenges, persistence, success, lessons learned, take questions, smile for photos. I was rehearsing my talking points in my head, barely paying attention to the road, when I drove past a small office building in a strip mall off I-95. The sign above the entrance read, Nourishwell Capital, Private Equity. Nourish. Like Nourish by Jenna, Jenna's failed wellness brand. I almost kept driving, but curiosity made me pull into the parking lot. I sat there with the engine idling, staring at that sign, wondering if it was a coincidence or if somehow, impossibly, Jenna had rebuilt. I pulled out my phone and searched Nourishwell Capital. The website loaded. Professional, sleek, expensive looking. The About Us page showed 3 partners. The third name on the list, Jenna Chen, managing partner. I clicked through to her bio. It was extensive. Jenna Chen brings 7 years of operational experience in the wellness and healthcare sectors. After founding and scaling Nourish by Jenna, a direct-to-consumer wellness brand, she transitioned into private equity, focusing on investments in emerging health and wellness companies. She holds an MBA from Columbia Business School and serves on the boards of 3 portfolio companies. 7 years of operational experience. Founded and scaled. Transitioned into private equity. It was a masterclass in corporate bullshit. She'd failed, gone back to school, and rebranded herself as an expert based on that failure. And apparently, it had worked. Because she was now a managing partner at a PE firm. I sat in my car in that parking lot for 20 minutes, processing this information. Jenna had failed spectacularly, had called me desperate 3 years ago asking for advice on how to shut down gracefully, had supposedly been working 2 retail jobs to survive. And now she was in private equity. I wanted to dismiss it as nepotism or luck or connections. But I couldn't. Because I'd done exactly what she'd done, taken failure and transformed it into fuel. The difference was, my business had succeeded. Hers hadn't. And yet somehow, we'd both ended up in positions of power and success. I was late to the conference. I gave my talk on autopilot, hit all the right notes, told the inspiring story everyone wanted to hear. But my mind was elsewhere, turning over the question, how had Jenna rebuilt so completely? After the conference, instead of driving back to Manhattan, I did something impulsive. I drove back to that strip mall, walked into the Nourishwell Capital office, and asked the receptionist if Jenna Chen was available. Do you have an appointment? The receptionist asked. No. But tell her Sarah Mitchell is here. She'll know who I am. 5 minutes later, Jenna appeared in the lobby. She looked different again. Professional. Polished. Her hair was cut in a sharp bob. She wore an expensive suit and designer glasses. She looked like success, like power, like someone who'd never failed at anything. Sarah, she said, her expression carefully neutral. This is a surprise. I was driving past. Saw your sign. Got curious. Do you want to come back to my office? Sure. Her office was corner unit, windows on 2 sides, minimalist furniture that probably cost more than my first car. There were framed photos on the wall, Jenna with various people I didn't recognize, all of them looking important. Nice setup, I said. Thanks. We've been here about 18 months. Just closed our second fund. She sat behind her desk, gestured for me to sit across from her. I assume you have questions. Just one. How? She smiled thinly. How did I go from retail jobs to managing partner? Is that what you want to know? Something like that. She leaned back in her chair. After Nourish by Jenna collapsed, I had a choice. I could give up, tell everyone I wasn't cut out for business, get a regular job and forget about entrepreneurship. Or I could figure out what went wrong and use that knowledge. So you went to business school. I went to business school. Used the last of my savings and took out loans. Columbia has a good program for people with operational experience. I wrote my application essay about failing, about what I learned from building a business that didn't work. Apparently, admissions committees love failure narratives. And after you graduated, I had something valuable, real experience building and killing a business, plus an MBA from a top program. PE firms love that combination. They're always looking for partners who understand operations, who've been in the trenches. So I leveraged my failure into expertise. It was clever. Borderline brilliant, actually. She'd taken the worst thing that had happened to her and turned it into her primary credential. And Marcus's investment? I asked. The $100,000 he gave you. Her expression tightened. Gone. All of it. I couldn't pay him back then, and I can't pay him back now. That money is just gone. He doesn't resent you for it. Oh, he absolutely resents me. We barely speak anymore. When we do, it's awkward and painful. He lost his job, 3 years ago. Nearly lost everything. I know. She looked at me sharply. You do. He reached out. Through you, actually. You called me asking for help. Right. I remember. You said no. At first. Then I changed my mind. I gave him $25,000. Jenna's jaw dropped. You what? I gave him the money he refused to give me. Seemed fitting. Sarah, she stopped, apparently at a loss for words. That's incredibly generous. Or incredibly petty. I can't decide which. Maybe both. She laughed, a real laugh that cracked her professional veneer. Jesus. You're something else, you know that. So are you, apparently. Managing partner at 33. That's impressive. Says the woman who built a multimillion-dollar company from nothing. We're quite the pair, aren't we? We are. She studied me for a moment. Can I ask you something? Sure. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Marcus had given you the money instead of me? If he'd believed in you from the start? It was a question I'd asked myself 1,000 times in those early days. But I hadn't thought about it in years. Honestly, no. Because if he'd given me the money, I would have built the business differently. I would have been more conservative, more cautious. I would have tried to prove to him that his investment was smart instead of proving to myself that I could do it alone. The business might not have become what it is. So his rejection was actually good for you. In the most painful way possible, yes. Jenna nodded slowly. I think about that a lot. About how his investment ruined me financially but taught me everything I needed to know about failure. About how if I'd succeeded with Nourish by Jenna, I'd probably still be running a small supplement company instead of investing in dozens of companies. His belief in me was actually a gift, but not in the way he intended. We're both better off because of his terrible judgment. Apparently. We sat in silence for a moment, two women who'd been wounded by the same man's choices, who'd taken radically different paths and somehow both ended up successful. He called me last month, Jenna said quietly. Marcus. He's been working as a financial analyst again, at a smaller firm. Steady job, decent pay, nothing spectacular. He told me he saw your company's billboard in Times Square. I'd forgotten about that billboard. Our marketing team had put it up 2 months ago, a massive ad featuring our logo and tagline, Healthcare Staffing, Simplified. What did he say about it? He said he was sitting in traffic, looking up at your face on that billboard, and he realized that you'd become exactly what he told you couldn't be. He said it haunts him. That he sees your success everywhere he looks and it reminds him of his own failure to see it coming. Good, I said, and I meant it. Not vindictively, but factually. He should remember. He should carry that weight. He asked me to call you. What? He asked me to reach out. To see if maybe, after all this time, you'd be willing to talk to him. He wants to apologize properly. Face to face. Every cell in my body screamed no. I'd closed that chapter. I'd moved on. I'd built something incredible without him, and I didn't need his apology to validate any of it. But I also knew that sometimes the only way to truly close a door is to walk through it one last time. Fine, I said. Tell him I'll meet him. Once. Public place. And then we're done. Jenna looked surprised. Really? Really? But Jenna, I'm not doing this for him. I'm not even doing it for me. I'm doing it because I want to look him in the eye, as the person I've become, and let him see exactly what he lost when he chose not to believe in me. He gets one conversation. That's it. She nodded. I'll tell him. And Sarah, thank you. For the honesty today. For not pretending we don't have this weird, complicated history. It's refreshing. We're both survivors of Marcus's bad decisions. Might as well acknowledge it. I stood to leave. At the door, I turned back. One more thing. The companies you invest in, are they successful? Most of them, yeah. We have a good track record. Why? Because you learned from failure. That's rare. Most people who fail once never try again. You turned it into expertise. That's impressive, Jenna. Whatever else is true between us, that's genuinely impressive. Her eyes got shiny. Thank you. That means more than you know. I walked out of that office feeling strange. Not angry, not vindicated, just curious. Curious about what Marcus would say after all these years. Curious if his apology would change anything. Curious if I'd feel anything at all. 3 days later, I sat in a coffee shop in the West Village, watching the door, waiting for my ex-husband to walk through it and try to explain why he'd been so catastrophically wrong about me. And for the first time in 3 years, I had no idea what I wanted to feel. If you've made it this far, you're in this as deep as I am. Comment below and tell me, would you take that meeting? Would you give him the chance to apologize? And whatever you decide, make sure you're subscribed, because what he says when he walks through that door is going to change everything one more time. Check the description box below for more stories like this. We're almost to the end, and I promise you, it's worth staying until the very last word. Asterisk, approx. 2,360 words, asterisk. Chapter 9, The Apology. Marcus walked into the coffee shop at exactly 3 p.m. He'd always been punctual. It was one of the few things about him that had never changed. He looked older. Not dramatically, but enough that I noticed. There were lines around his eyes that hadn't been there before. His hair was thinner. He'd lost weight, but not in a healthy way, more like he'd been stressed and forgetting to eat. He saw me at the corner table and his expression did something complicated. Relief, maybe. Or fear. Or both. Sarah, he said as he approached. Thank you for meeting me. Sit down, Marcus. He sat across from me, folding his hands on the table like he was in a job interview. You look incredible. Success suits you. Let's skip the pleasantries. You wanted to apologize. So apologize. He flinched but nodded. Right. Okay. I've been thinking about what to say for 3 years. I've rehearsed this conversation 1,000 times. But now that you're sitting here, everything I planned sounds hollow. Try anyway. He took a breath. I was wrong. About everything. About your capabilities, about your business idea, about what you could accomplish. I looked at you and saw someone who needed to be protected from her own ambitions. I thought I was being realistic when I was actually just being cruel. Why? Why was I cruel? Why did you see me that way? We were married. You supposedly loved me. Why did you think I was incapable? He was quiet for a long time, staring at his hands. I think I was threatened. By your ambition. By your competence. You were this brilliant nurse who everyone respected, and I was just a mid-level analyst at a firm where I'd plateaued. When you started talking about building a business, about becoming an entrepreneur, I think some part of me panicked. Because if you succeeded, what would that say about me? That I was the boring one? The unambitious one? So you sabotaged me. Not consciously, but yes. I told myself I was protecting our financial stability, that I was being pragmatic. But really, I was protecting my ego. Keeping you small made me feel bigger. The honesty was startling. I'd expected deflection or justification. Not this. And Jenna? I asked. Jenna was safe. She was my baby sister. Supporting her felt noble, not threatening. If she succeeded, I could take credit for believing in her. If she failed, I could comfort her and still be the smart one. There was no risk to my ego either way. Except she did fail. And it cost you $100,000. I know. I don't blame her for that, by the way. I gave her money without proper due diligence because I wanted to be the hero. Her failure is on both of us. He looked up at me. But your success? That's entirely yours. You built something real with nothing. No support from me, no financial backing, just your own determination. And I have to live with knowing that I could have been part of that. I could have been your partner in building something incredible. Instead, I was the obstacle you had to overcome. You were. I know. And Sarah, I'm so sorry. I'm sorry for calling you a failure. I'm sorry for dismissing your dreams. I'm sorry for making you feel worthless when you were actually the most capable person I knew. I was a bad husband. I was a bad partner. And I'll regret it for the rest of my life. I studied his face, looking for signs of manipulation or self-pity. But all I saw was genuine remorse. This wasn't a performance. This was real. Do you want me to forgive you? I asked. I want you to know that I see what I did. That I understand the damage I caused. If forgiveness comes with that, I'd be grateful. But I'm not entitled to it. You're not. I know. I took a sip of my coffee, letting the silence stretch. Part of me wanted to twist the knife, to detail every moment he'd hurt me, to make him feel the full weight of his failures. But a bigger part of me was just tired of carrying this anger. Here's what I've learned, I said finally. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about proving yourself right. For the first year after I left, I was building MedStaff Solutions because I wanted to shove it in your face. I wanted you to see me succeed and choke on your own skepticism. But somewhere along the way, that stopped mattering. I stopped building for you and started building for me. For the nurses who needed flexible work. For the hospitals that were desperate for solutions. For myself, because I deserved to see what I could create. I'm glad it stopped being about me. It had to. Because revenge is a terrible foundation for a business. Spite can fuel you for a few months, but it can't sustain you for years. What sustained me was believing in the work itself. Believing I was solving a real problem. Believing I had value beyond your opinion of me. Marcus nodded slowly. That's probably the most mature thing I've ever heard. Maturity is expensive. It cost me a marriage, 2 years of brutal work, and every ounce of self-doubt I had to overcome. But I'm better for it. I'm not. Better, I mean. I'm smaller than I was. More afraid. Less certain about everything. Good. You should be uncertain. Certainty is what made you cruel. You were so sure you knew what I was capable of that you couldn't see the actual person in front of you. You're right. We sat in silence for a while. People came and went around us, students with laptops, couples on dates, professionals taking meetings. Normal people living normal lives, unaware that at our table, a marriage was being posthumously autopsied. Jenna told me you gave me money, Marcus said quietly. 3 years ago, when I lost my job. She said you wired me $25,000. I did. Why? Because I needed to prove to myself that I could be generous even when you didn't deserve it. That I could give you what you refused to give me and not feel bitter about it. It was the last piece of letting go, proving that your opinion didn't control my actions anymore. That's the most expensive therapy session in history. I laughed despite myself. Probably. But it worked. After I sent that money, I stopped thinking about you. Stopped checking to see if you'd found a new job. Stopped wondering if you'd heard about MedStaff Solutions' success. I just moved on. I wish I'd moved on. Why haven't you? He ran his hand through his thinning hair. Because everywhere I look, I see evidence of my failure. Not just losing my job or the money I wasted on Jenna's business. But you. You're everywhere. Your company's billboard in Times Square. Articles about you in business magazines. People at my office talking about MedStaff Solutions as this innovative disruptor. You're unavoidable. And every time I see your name, I remember that I told you you'd fail. That I thought I was smarter than you. That I was catastrophically wrong. And you can't forgive yourself for that. How can I? I destroyed the best relationship I ever had because I was too insecure to support my own wife. You didn't destroy it, Marcus. I did. I left. I chose to walk away instead of trying to fix it. Because I made it unfixable. Maybe. But I'm not blameless. I could have fought harder. Could have demanded you take me seriously instead of just leaving. I chose the nuclear option because it was easier than the hard work of repair. Are you saying you regret leaving? No. Leaving was the right choice. But I regret how much anger I carried after. I regret letting you live in my head rent-free for 2 years. I regret building a company partially to spite you instead of purely because I believed in it. Those were my choices, not yours. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then, I'm in therapy now. Have been for about a year. My therapist says I have a tendency to center myself in other people's stories. To make their successes about my failures. She's been trying to get me to see that your success isn't about me at all. Your therapist is right. I know. But it's hard to internalize. Because you're my ex-wife. I was there at the beginning of your story. I was the villain in your origin story. You were a chapter, Marcus. Not the whole book. And definitely not the author. He smiled sadly. That's a very generous way to put it. I'm working on generosity. Turns out success makes it easier. I'm happy for you. Genuinely. Whatever else is true, I'm glad you're thriving. Are you? Thriving, I mean. Depends on the metric. Career-wise, I'm fine. Making decent money at a smaller firm. Not climbing any ladders, but stable. Personally, I'm dating someone. She's kind. Patient. Nothing like you, which is probably good. I'm in therapy. I'm trying to be better than I was. That's all anyone can do. Is it enough? For you? I don't know. That's something you have to answer for yourself. But Marcus, I need you to understand something. This conversation, this apology, it doesn't change anything between us. I'm not interested in being friends. I'm not interested in staying in touch. You needed to say what you needed to say, and I listened. But this is closure, not a new beginning. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to really understand. After today, we go back to being strangers. You live your life, I live mine, and we don't intersect anymore. No more reaching out through Jenna. No more texts on holidays. No more anything. Can you accept that? He nodded, and I could see the sadness in his eyes. I can accept it. It's what I deserve. It's not about what you deserve. It's about what I need. I need complete separation. I need to know that this chapter is definitively closed. Then consider it closed. He stood up, extending his hand across the table. Thank you, Sarah, for meeting me, for listening, for being more gracious than I had any right to expect. I hope life gives you everything you want. I shook his hand. His grip was firm but brief, and then he was walking toward the door. He paused at the threshold and turned back. One more thing. You were never a failure. Not for one single day. You were always extraordinary. I was just too small to see it. Then he walked out into the afternoon sunlight, and I watched him disappear into the crowd on the sidewalk. I sat there for another 20 minutes, finishing my coffee, processing what had just happened. The apology I'd received. The closure I'd needed. The strange, anticlimactic feeling of finally getting something you'd wanted and realizing it changed nothing. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel, asterisk, how'd it go? Asterisk. Asterisk, it went. He apologized. It was genuine. I still don't forgive him, but I think I'm finally done being angry. Asterisk. Asterisk, that's huge. Asterisk. Asterisk, yeah, it is. Asterisk. Asterisk, drinks tonight to celebrate. Asterisk. Asterisk, actually, I think I just want to go home. Be alone with my thoughts for a bit. Asterisk. Asterisk, whatever you need. Love you. Asterisk. Asterisk, love you too. Asterisk. I walked back to my office in Lower Manhattan, taking the long route through the West Village, past brownstones and tiny parks and restaurants with outdoor seating. The city hummed around me, taxis honking, construction somewhere in the distance, the smell of food carts and subway steam. When I got back to the office, Tyler was waiting in my office. We have a problem, he said. My stomach dropped. What kind of problem? The good kind. 3 different hospital networks reached out today wanting to discuss national contracts. Simultaneously. If we sign all 3, we'd be looking at $15 million in new annual revenue. But our platform can't handle that kind of volume without a major infrastructure overhaul. How major? 6 months of development. Maybe 8. And we'd need to hire at least 10 more engineers. Cost? $3 million. Conservatively. Maybe 4 if we hit complications. I sat down at my desk, my mind already calculating. We had the capital. We had Sequoia's backing. We had proof of concept. But scaling that fast meant risk. Meant potential system failures. Meant growing faster than our culture could sustain. It also meant cementing our position as the dominant player in the space. Meant Quick Nurse and every other competitor would be playing catch-up. Meant MedStaff Solutions could become a household name in healthcare. Schedule calls with all 3 networks, I said. Tell them we're interested but we need to assess capacity. Meanwhile, start building the engineering team. Pull together a project plan for the infrastructure overhaul. I want to see timelines and risk analysis by Friday. Tyler grinned. You're going for it. We didn't build this company to stay small. We built it to change the industry. So let's change it. After he left, I sat in my office alone, looking out at the Manhattan skyline. 3 years ago, I'd been in a studio apartment in Astoria, desperate and broke and determined to prove Marcus wrong. I'd built MedStaff Solutions on rage and spite and the raw need to show him I wasn't a failure. Now I was sitting in a corner office, contemplating a decision that could grow my company into a national powerhouse or collapse it under the weight of its own ambition. And Marcus wasn't a factor in that decision at all. He was just a person I used to know, a chapter I'd finally closed. The business had become bigger than my revenge. The mission had become bigger than my pain. And somewhere along the way, I'd become someone who made decisions based on vision, not vindication. That night, I went home to my apartment in Brooklyn Heights, ordered Thai food, and sat on my couch with a glass of wine, thinking about the journey. About the woman who'd left her marriage with nothing but determination. About the woman who'd built a business from a studio apartment. About the woman who'd given her ex-husband money she didn't owe him because she needed to prove she was bigger than her bitterness. And about the woman I was now, still driven, still ambitious, but no longer angry. No longer building to prove anyone wrong. Just building because I believed in what we were creating. My phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. Is this Sarah Mitchell? A man's voice, professional but warm. Speaking. My name is David Rodriguez. I'm a producer for *60 Minutes Star. We're doing a segment on women entrepreneurs disrupting traditional industries, and your name came up repeatedly in our research. Would you be interested in being interviewed? *60 Minutes Star. National television. Millions of viewers. 5 years ago, I would have said yes immediately, thrilled at the chance to show Marcus and everyone who doubted me just how successful I'd become. Now, I paused and asked myself, do I want to do this for me, or do I want to do this for the validation? Can I think about it and get back to you? I asked. Of course. I'll email you my contact information. Take your time. After he hung up, I sat there with my wine, thinking about what I actually wanted. Not what would look impressive. Not what would prove anything to anyone. Just what I, Sarah Mitchell, actually wanted for my life and my company. And I realized, I wanted to keep building. Keep growing. Keep solving problems that mattered. I wanted to wake up every day excited about the work, not because of who was watching, but because the work itself mattered. Everything else, the recognition, the validation, the proof that I'd succeeded, was just noise. The real victory wasn't the *Forbes article or the *60 Minutes interview or the Times Square billboard. It wasn't even the moment Marcus apologized. The real victory was this, sitting in my apartment, successful and content, making decisions based on what I wanted rather than what I needed to prove. That was freedom. That was success. That was everything I'd been fighting for without even realizing it. If you're still here with me after all of this, after every twist and turn and moment of doubt, thank you. Drop a comment below and tell me what success means to you. Not the Instagram version, but the real version. The version that lives in your chest and makes you feel alive. Because we're almost at the end of this journey, and I want you to know, the best part isn't the revenge or the vindication or even the apology. The best part is becoming someone who doesn't need any of those things anymore. Stay with me for one more chapter. I promise you, it's worth it. And check that description box below for more stories like this, stories about people who found themselves on the other side of pain. 6 months after my meeting with Marcus, MedStaff Solutions signed all 3 national contracts. Tyler's team pulled off a minor miracle, completely rebuilding our infrastructure in 5 months instead of 8. We hired 32 new employees. We opened regional offices in Chicago, Atlanta, and Los Angeles. By October 2027, we were operating in all 50 states with over 400 hospital clients and 27,000 registered nurses. Our annual revenue hit $68 million. Sequoia was already talking about a Series C round that would value us at over $200 million. I was 36 years old. I was running a company that employed 300 people and served thousands more. I was being invited to speak at conferences and featured in business schools as a case study. I'd appeared on *60 Minutes*. I eventually said yes, and the segment had been watched by 7 million people. On paper, I'd achieved everything I'd set out to prove when I left Marcus 5 years earlier. I'd shown him I wasn't a failure. I'd built something undeniably successful. I'd become exactly what he'd said I couldn't be. But the strangest thing had happened along the way. I'd stopped caring about proving anything to anyone. The moment I realized this completely was on a Tuesday in November. I was walking through our office, past desks where people were working on problems that mattered, connecting nurses with hospitals, improving healthcare staffing, making the system work better. And I overheard 2 of our newer employees talking. "Did you know Sarah used to be a nurse?" one said. "Really? I had no idea. I just thought she was always in tech." I almost stopped to correct them, to explain my origin story, to make sure they understood the journey. But then I realized, it didn't matter. My past was my past. It had shaped me, but it didn't define me. I was the CEO of MedStaff Solutions not because of what I'd overcome, but because of what I'd built. That afternoon, I got an email that made me laugh out loud. Subject: Business Proposal. Dear Ms. Mitchell My name is Jenna Chen, Managing Partner at Nourishwell Capital. We're a healthcare-focused PE firm, and we've been tracking MedStaff Solutions growth with great interest. We're currently raising our third fund and would be interested in discussing a potential partnership. We specialize in helping companies like yours navigate the transition from VC-backed growth to long-term sustainability and potential exit strategies. Would you be open to a conversation? I promise to keep our complicated personal history completely separate from any professional discussion. Best regards. Jenna Chen. I stared at that email for a long time. Jenna, whose failed business had been funded by money that should have been mine, who'd called me desperate 3 years ago, who'd rebuilt herself into a PE partner, was now pitching me on a partnership. The universe, once again, had a sense of humor. I called Rachel into my office and showed her the email. No, she said immediately. Absolutely not. We are not doing business with that family. Why not? Are you kidding? After everything. Rach, that was years ago. Jenna's legitimate now. Nourishwell has a good reputation. They've backed some successful companies. This could actually be useful for us. Or it could be a nightmare mixing business with that entire mess of history. Maybe. But I'm curious what she'd propose. Sarah, you don't owe them anything. Not Marcus, not Jenna, not anyone in that family. I know I don't owe them. But this isn't about them. It's about whether the partnership makes sense for MedStaff Solutions. We're going to need to think about exit strategy eventually. Sequoia's going to want their return. Having a PE firm that understands healthcare could be valuable. Rachel sighed. You're going to do this no matter what I say, aren't you? I'm going to take the meeting. That's all. One conversation. If it's a bad fit, we walk away. Famous last words. I met with Jenna 2 weeks later at Nourishwell's offices. This time, there were 2 other partners present, a man named Robert Chen, no relation, apparently, and a woman named Michelle Park. They'd prepared a full presentation on their firm, their portfolio, their approach to partnering with growth stage companies. It was professional, thorough, impressive. After the presentation, Jenna asked if she could speak with me alone for a moment. Robert and Michelle left the conference room. Before we go any further, Jenna said, I need to acknowledge how weird this is. I'm pitching you on a business partnership when 5 years ago, you were married to my brother and I was calling you asking for advice on shutting down my failed company. It's definitely weird. I want you to know I can keep those things separate. If we work together, it'll be purely professional. No bringing up the past, no awkward family dynamics, no mixing personal and business. Can you actually do that? Keep it separate. I think so. I've worked with founders who became friends, founders who became enemies, founders who stayed strictly professional. I can do whatever version works for you. I studied her face, looking for signs of manipulation or hidden agenda. But all I saw was someone trying to navigate a complicated situation professionally. What does Marcus think about this? I asked. I haven't told him. If we end up working together, I will. But I wanted to have this conversation first, see if you were even interested, before making it a thing. How is he, by the way? Fine. Still at the same firm. Still dating that woman, Christine. She's nice. Patient. He seems more settled than he's been in years. He still talks about you sometimes, but not in that obsessive way he used to. More like you're someone he used to know who he hopes is doing well. That's progress, I guess. It is. He's in therapy. working on his stuff, trying to be better. She paused. He told me about your meeting last year, about what you said to him. It helped him, I think. Gave him permission to move on. Good. He deserved that. Did you mean it? What you said about not building to prove him wrong anymore? Yes. At first, spite was fuel. But you can't run a company on spite forever. Eventually, you have to actually care about the mission. Jenna nodded slowly. I had the opposite problem. I started Nourish by Jenna because I cared about wellness, but I didn't care enough about the business fundamentals. I was so focused on the vision that I ignored the math. That's what killed it. And now? Now I care about the math first and the vision second, which is better for investing but sometimes feels soulless. I see all these founders with their passionate pitches about changing the world, and I have to be the one who asks about unit economics and customer acquisition costs. I've become the person I used to resent. The person Marcus was to me. Yeah, exactly. She looked uncomfortable. I never apologized to you for taking that money, for benefiting from his belief in me when he didn't believe in you. I know it's years late, but I'm sorry. You didn't owe me an apology. Marcus made his choice. You just accepted what was offered. Still, I should have said something back then. Should have told him he was wrong about you. But I was too excited about my own opportunity to think about anyone else. We all make selfish choices sometimes. You were young and ambitious. I probably would have done the same thing. Would you though? Because I'm not sure you would have. You have this way of seeing people clearly, of being fair even when it costs you. I don't think you would have taken money you knew belonged to someone else. I don't know what I would have done. I'd like to think I'd have been better, but who knows? We're all capable of selfishness when we want something badly enough. Jenna smiled sadly. You're very generous in how you see people. I'm trying to be. Success makes generosity easier. We talked for another hour about the potential partnership. Their fund was raising $300 million. They wanted to invest in 10 to 12 companies over the next 3 years. MedStaff Solutions fit their thesis perfectly. Established, profitable, positioned for significant growth, led by someone who understood the industry intimately. They were proposing a minority investment, maybe 15%, that would give us capital for international expansion and provide strategic support for an eventual exit. IPO, acquisition, or private equity buyout. They'd help us navigate whatever path made sense. Can I think about it? I asked. Of course. Take all the time you need. We're patient. I left that meeting with my head spinning. A partnership with Nourishwell could be genuinely valuable. But it would also mean tying myself professionally to Jenna, to Marcus's family, to that entire complicated history. That night, I called Rachel and Tyler and our COO Marcus for an emergency strategy session at my apartment. I ordered pizza, opened wine, and laid out the situation. The question is, I said after explaining everything, can I work with Jenna professionally without it being weird? It'll definitely be weird, Tyler said. The question is whether it's worth it weird or deal-breaker weird. Their terms are good, Marcus the COO noted. He was always practical about these things. 15% for $40 million in capital, plus strategic support. That values us at about $260, which is aggressive but defensible given our growth trajectory. The capital would let us expand internationally, maybe acquire some competitors. It's a smart move financially. But emotionally? Rachel asked. Sarah, can you honestly sit in board meetings with Jenna without thinking about everything that happened? I don't know, I admitted. Maybe. I met with her today and it felt professional. Separate from the personal history. But ongoing partnership is different than one meeting. What does your gut say? Tyler asked. I thought about it. Really thought about it. And I realized, my gut said it was fine. The anger I'd carried for years was gone. Jenna wasn't the villain in my story anymore. She was just another entrepreneur who'd failed and rebuilt, same as thousands of others. My gut says yes, I said. My gut says I've worked too hard to let old history stop me from making good business decisions. Nourishwell can help us get where we want to go. The fact that Jenna happens to be Marcus's sister is irrelevant to whether the partnership makes sense. Then do it, Rachel said. But I reserve the right to say I told you so if it gets weird. Deal. We signed the term sheet with Nourishwell in January 2028. The investment closed in March. $40 million for 15% equity. Jenna joined our board as the Nourishwell representative. The first board meeting was surreal. I sat at the head of the table, presenting our quarterly results to a room that included David from Sequoia, Jenna from Nourishwell, 2 independent board members, and our executive team. 5 years earlier, I'd been a nurse working double shifts and living in a studio apartment, desperate to prove I wasn't a failure. Now I was presenting $68 million in annual revenue to a board of directors who'd invested hundreds of millions in my company. The little girl in me who'd needed Marcus's approval wanted to send him a photo of that boardroom. Wanted him to see exactly how wrong he'd been. But the woman I'd become just sent out the meeting notes and moved on to the next item on my agenda. In May, MedStaff Solutions announced our expansion into Canada. In July, we signed our 1,000th hospital client. In September, Fortune named me one of their 40 under 40 business leaders. And through all of it, I felt content. Not ecstatic, not vindicated, just quietly satisfied with what I'd built and where I was going. On a Friday evening in October, I was working late in my office when my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. This is Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. A woman's voice, older, refined. Yes. This is Catherine Chen, Marcus's mother. I froze. I'd met Catherine maybe a dozen times during my marriage, formal dinners, holiday celebrations. She'd always been polite but distant, making it clear she thought Marcus could have done better. Mrs. Chen. This is unexpected. I apologize for calling out of the blue. I got your number from Jenna. I hope that's acceptable. It's fine. What can I do for you? I wanted to thank you for what you gave Marcus 3 years ago, when he lost his job. Jenna told me about the money you sent. $25,000 when he was desperate and you owed him nothing. It was a long time ago. It saved him. Did he tell you that? He was 2 weeks from losing the apartment, from having to move back in with us at 50 years old. Your money bought him time to find work, to stabilize. It was an act of profound generosity that I don't think he fully appreciated at the time. I didn't do it for appreciation. I know. That's why I'm calling. To tell you that I was wrong about you. When you and Marcus were married, I thought you weren't ambitious enough, that you were content to be just a nurse. I didn't see your potential. I didn't see your strength. I'm sorry for that. Hearing Catherine Chen apologize was possibly more surreal than anything else that had happened in the past 5 years. Thank you, I managed. That means more than you know. You've built something extraordinary. My daughter has nothing but admiration for what you've accomplished, and for how you've conducted yourself. You could have been bitter. You could have refused to work with her out of spite. Instead, you've been professional and gracious. That speaks to remarkable character. I just tried to make good decisions. That's all any of us can do. I won't keep you, I'm sure you're busy, but I wanted you to know that the Chen family owes you a debt of gratitude. For your generosity to Marcus. For your professionalism with Jenna. For being better than we deserved. After she hung up, I sat in my office for a long time, processing that conversation. The Chen family, the family that had silently judged me, that had benefited from Marcus's choice to fund Jenna instead of me, that had never quite accepted me as good enough, was thanking me for being gracious. It felt like closing a circle I didn't even know was still open. That night, I went home to my apartment, poured a glass of wine, and stood at my window looking out at the Manhattan skyline. The same view I'd had for 3 years now, but somehow it looked different. Bigger. More mine. I thought about the woman I'd been 5 years ago, angry, hurt, determined to prove Marcus wrong at any cost. I thought about the journey from that studio apartment in Astoria to this moment, standing in Brooklyn Heights, CEO of a company valued at over $260 million. I thought about Marcus, living his quiet life with Christine, stable and settled and carrying the weight of his own regrets. I thought about Jenna, who'd failed spectacularly and rebuilt herself into something new. I thought about all the nurses using our platform to find work, all the hospitals we were helping staff, all the lives we were touching in small but meaningful ways. And I realized, this was it. This was what success actually looked like. Not the magazine covers or the valuations or the board meetings. Not the revenge or the vindication or even the apologies. Success was building something that mattered, with people you respected, for reasons that transcended your own ego. Success was being able to give Marcus money when he needed it, not because he deserved it, but because you could afford to be generous. Success was working with Jenna professionally without letting old wounds dictate your decisions. Success was standing in your apartment on a Friday night, alone and content, knowing you become exactly who you wanted to be, not in spite of what you'd survived, but because of how you'd chosen to survive it. My phone buzzed. A text from Rachel. Asterisk drinks tomorrow to celebrate being old and successful. Asterisk. Asterisk I'm 36. Not old. Asterisk. Asterisk old enough to know better than to still be working at 9 p.m. on a Friday. Come out with us. Asterisk. Asterisk fine. But only if we go somewhere that doesn't play music so loud I can't hear myself think. Asterisk. Asterisk deal. Love you, boss lady. Asterisk. Asterisk love you too. Asterisk. I put my phone down and took a sip of wine, watching the lights of Manhattan twinkle in the darkness. Somewhere out there, Marcus was living his life. Jenna was building her career. Catherine Chen was probably having dinner with her family. And I was here, in this moment, at peace with all of it. 5 years ago, my husband gave his sister $100,000 and gave me nothing but doubt. He called me a failure. He told me I didn't have what it took to build a business. And he was catastrophically, beautifully, perfectly wrong. Not because I proved him wrong, though I did. Not because I got revenge, though in a way, I suppose I did. But because I built something that mattered more than his opinion. Something that existed independent of his belief or disbelief. Something that was mine, built on my terms, for my reasons. That's the real story. Not revenge. Not vindication. Just becoming so undeniably yourself that other people's doubts become irrelevant noise in the background of your success. And if you've made it all the way to the end of this story with me, I want you to know, you can do this too. Whatever it is you're building, whatever dream someone told you was impossible, whatever vision you have that nobody else can see, you can do it. Not to prove them wrong. Not for revenge. But because you deserve to see what you're capable of when you stop asking for permission and start building anyway. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. Thank you for believing that stories like mine matter, because they do. They all do. Now go check that description box below for more stories like this. Stories about people who refuse to be defined by other people's limitations, who built empires from broken pieces, who learned that the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's becoming so successful that the person who doubted you becomes a footnote in your origin story instead of the defining chapter. Go build something beautiful. I'll be cheering for you.